Hello, welcome to my NCLEX Prep channel. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the ABG interpretation. That means arterial blood gas interpretation. In my short video, I have mentioned about the Rome method, which is respiratory opposite and metabolic equal. But in this video, I'm going to talk about in details how you can interpret it. It's a respiratory acidosis or alkalosis or metabolic acidosis or alkalosis. Also, in your NCLEX exam, they will ask you about it's compensated, partially compensated, or uncompensated. That also you have to figure it out. So in this video, I'm gonna give you the examples as well, and also tell you about how you can decide it's compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated. So stay tuned. Without getting delay, let's start. So first of all, you have to remember the normal value of the pH, PaCO2 and HCO3. So pH normal value is 7.35 to 7.45. PaCO2 normal value is 35 to 45. And HCO3, that's a bicarbonate, that's normal value is 22 to 26. I have told about the Rome method. So this R stands for the respiratory, O stands for the opposite, M stands for the metabolic, and E stands for the equal. What does it mean by that? So if pH is, for that you have to remember, if pH is less than 7.35, then it's acidic state. If pH value is greater than 7.45, then it's alkalotic state. So if we say if the pH value is less than 7.35 and if it's the respiratory condition involves, then it's supposed to be the PaCO2 value is greater than 45. That means pH is lower but PaCO2 value is higher. That means the respiratory opposite. But if the pH value is greater than 7.45 and HCO3 bicarbonate value is greater than 26, both are higher, that means it's metabolic equal. So in this situation, it's gonna be the metabolic. If pH is value is greater than 7.45 but PaCO2 value is less than 35, then it's gonna be the respiratory situation. But how do you identify it's compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated? So for that, if the pH value is within a normal value, that means 7.35 to 7.45, that means it's a pH is in compensated, it's within normal range. But pH is less than 7.35 or the 7 or greater than 7.45, that means it's uncompensated. But it's totally uncompensated or the partially compensated, that's the confusing part. Body is trying to compensate that part, that means it's a partially compensated. But body is not even trying to compensate, that means it's uncompensated. Without being said, like the if PaCO2 value is greater than 45 and pH value is less than 7.35, that means the respiratory acidosis, right? But bicarbonate HCO3 value is greater than 26, that means bicarbonate is trying to compensate that value to become alkalotic. So it's a partially compensated. So if you don't get an idea, let's see an example here. If pH is 7.55, PaCO2 is 23, HCO3 is 24. So pH is 7.55, that means greater than 7.45. So I said if pH is greater than 7.45, that means it's alkalotic, so it's alkalosis. But PaCO2 is less than 35, that means it's 23. So I said respiratory opposite situation. So pH is greater than the 7.45 but PaCO2 is less than 35, so both are in opposite situation, so it's a respiratory alkalosis. But an HCO3 is 24, that means it's within a normal range between 22 to 26. So it's even body is not trying to compensate, that means it's uncompensated respiratory alkalosis. Let's see a next example. if pH is 7.20, PaCO2 is 40 and HCO3 is 20. So pH is 7.20, that means is acidotic, so acidosis. PaCO2 is 40, that means it's within a normal range, and HCO3 is 20, that means it's lower. So both are in the same direction. pH is lower and HCO3 is lower too, so it's gonna be the metabolic. So it's a metabolic acidosis, but it's compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated. So even the PaCO2 is normal state, like within a normal range between 35 to 45, that means it's uncompensated. But if PaCO2 value is less than 35, then it means body is trying to compensate. That means it's a partially compensated. But in this scenario, PaCO2 is normal range within 35 to 45, so it's uncompensated. Now let's see next example. If pH is 7.31, PaCO2 value is 50 and HCO3 value is 42. So pH value is 7.31, that means it's less than 7.35. so I said if it's less than 7.35, then it's gonna be the acidic, so it's acidosis. PaCO2 value is 50, that means it's greater than 45, that means it's gonna be the respiratory, right? But HCO3 is 42, that means HCO3 is even greater than 26. Then also if you get confused, because PaCO2 value is greater than 45 and HCO3 value is greater than 26, both are in out of the range. But how you gonna decide it's gonna be the respiratory or the metabolic? So as I said, it's the respiratory gonna be the opposite and metabolic gonna be the equal, right? So respiratory situation, if the pH value is less than 7.31, then PaCO2 value is supposed to be greater than 45. That's the PaCO2 value is 50. So that means it's greater than the 45. So it's gonna be the respiratory acidosis. How come it's not gonna be the metabolic? Because as I said, metabolic equal, that means if the HCO3 value is less than 22, then it's gonna be the metabolic acidosis. But in this scenario, its HCO3 is greater than 42, but it's compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated. So in this scenario, HCO3 is 42, that means alkalosis, right? So body's condition is respiratory or acidosis, but HCO3 is trying to balance the pH value. That means it's partially compensated. Partially compensated respiratory acidosis. Let's see next example. If pH value is 7.50, PaCO2 value is 50 and HCO3 value is 35. So as I said, pH value is 7.50, that means it's greater than 7.45. That means if its pH value is greater than 7.45, then means it's alkalosis. Alkalosis. PaCO2 value is 50, that means it's greater than 45. But as I said, if it's a respiratory situation, then it's gonna be the opposite condition, right? So if pH value is greater than 7.45, then it's supposed to be PaCO2 value less than 35, but in this scenario it's greater than 45. But HCO3 is 35, that means HCO3 is greater than 26. So both are in the same direction, right? pH value is same direction and the HCO3 is the same direction. That means metabolic equal. So this situation is metabolic alkalosis. Let's say it's in a compensated, partially compensated, or uncompensated. So PaCO2 value is 50, that means it's acidic, right? So body is trying to compensate the HCO3 value, that means it's partially compensated. But in this scenario, if its PaCO2 value is less than 35, means 34 or 33, something like that, then even the body is not trying to compensate, so it's gonna be the uncompensated. But in this scenario, PaCO2 value is 50, that means body is trying to compensate that value, so it's a partially compensated. Let's have a last example. So if pH value is 7.44, PaCO2 value is 44, and HCO3 value is 32. So in this scenario, pH value is 7.44, that means it's within a normal range. So how you gonna decide it's acidosis or alkalosis? So in this scenario, I would say if certain kind of scenario comes in your NCLEX exam, then you have to decide if 7.45 value is near to 7.45 or 7.35. So if we say 7.45, then it's near to the 7.45, not to the 7.35. That means it's alkalotic side, right? So it's alkalosis, right? But PaCO2 value is greater than PaCO2 value is 44, that means it's within a normal range. And HCO3 is 32, that means it's greater than 26, then it's gonna be the metabolic, because as I said, metabolic equals, so it's a metabolic alkalosis. But it's compensated, uncompensated, or partially compensated. So in this scenario, pH value is within a normal range, right? So it's gonna be the fully compensated. But if the pH value is outside of the normal range, then we have to decide based on the PaCO2 value. But in this scenario, pH value is within normal range, so it's gonna be the fully compensated. And the HCO3 that's greater than the 26 and it's both in the same direction, then it's gonna be the metabolic alkalosis. That's how you can decide. If you are still any question regarding the ABG interpretation, comment down below.